My name's Sara. I am a growth ops specialist, strategist, brilliant brain for creative agencies, celebrity brands, scaling startups, and I've spent over 10 years in compliance and data and business development. So I got started in nonprofit, 18, I did AmeriCorps, had like no direction in my life, and I'm like, I'm gonna move to Austin, and it's gonna be so much fun. And in nonprofit, if any of you work in nonprofit, you know that there's always turnover, there's always stress, and there is never money. And so I was really fortunate in my first real job that we lost all of our money. And I was the youngest person on staff by about an 8-year gap. And so when we lost all of our funding, went from a team of 65 to a team of 12 in about a 90-day window. And my executive director looked at me one day and said, Sara, you're young. Here's our communications department. And I said, thank you so much. What is a press release? And that was the first time where I really said, wow, I can do whatever I want. Like, there's literally no bar. No one's expecting anything from me because this department doesn't really exist, right? And so I dove full into learning video and to learning how to tell stories. But at the same time, because we lost that funding, we were a 20-year organization who had no databases. We were operating out of a room of filing cabinets, and we owed over 80 grand to the city in one single reporting quarter. And little old 19-year-old me was like, I'm fixing this. This is my job. And it was not my job, but it was the best apprenticeship I could have ever asked for. And so from there, I went into really just diving into every single thing that I could learn, but I couldn't then find another job. I like overqualified myself, right? And so for about 2 years, I would interview, and people are like, you wear too many hats. Like, I'm like, I'm 25 and I'm burnt out. Like, I'm ready to retire. I wanna move on. Please hire me. I wanna make more money. And so from there, I started freelancing. And like a lot of people, I made websites and I did design because I didn't know that I could take my day job with me and freelance my day job. I had no idea about the consulting world. Like, that was not a word in my vocabulary at all at 25. And so I started working with a lot of brands, a lot of impact brands, startups, who would pay me for logos and websites, but then would say, well, how do I set my pricing? How do I set my processes? And I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, this isn't my job, why are you asking me? But I realized that I could tap back into everything I was doing in my day job. And so I want you to keep that, because we're gonna talk about reviewing your current work to propel you forward as we go through this conversation tonight, because it is really important. And full circle from there, when people started asking me, I was like, oh, I can freelance doing what I did in my day job and the stuff that I'm good at, because I am not an emotional girly pop. Like, design stresses me out. I'm good at it, but I don't want to hold your hand. I don't want to know why the color pink stresses you out. Like, not my vibe. I don't care. And so zeros and ones for me make everything make sense, and I'm really good at zeros and ones. I'm really good at telling people that their business is trash and that we need to burn it down and start over again. So with that, my agency, it's not even an agency, I guess technically it's a firm, a consultancy, I don't know. I'm a one-woman show, guys. I don't have a team. I refuse to manage people. But I own the business systems, and we focus on untangling operations. So I have done everything from helping CEOs exit and formulating C-suite teams. I have really spent the last 6 years in kind of this thing that I call managing down in order to process up. Because a lot of C-suites want all of this stuff, right? They're like, no, you're going to use Dubsado, you're going to use Notion, and they have no idea what their team does to actually make the vision happen. And so I come in as that middle ground to say, well, what do we need to process out? Why do you have 6 VAs all doing one thing? Get rid of them and have one thing, or automate it, right? So that's what I do at Systems. And from there, one of the most important things that I want you guys to take away from today is that solopreneurs, freelancers, spend nearly 30% a week on manual workflows, redundant processes, and searching for information. 30% a week. For you, if y'all are freelancing full-time, or 90% of your time, that's a lot of your week, right? If we think about client work where you are just in your inbox all day, every day, what could you be doing instead? Could you be creating content? Do you want to start a YouTube channel and hang out with me online? Do you want to be giving talks? Do you want to move into a retainer model? What do you want from your freelancing career? And that was something that when I started, no one asked me. Everyone's like, well, you're a freelancer. You're supposed to be broke and you're supposed to be struggling and you're supposed to, be scrappy. And it's like, I'm good. That's like not my life. Like my dogs, I don't want them to be homeless, right? And so I wanted to build a business and I wanted to be treated like that. So how do we do that? How do we get rid of all of the quote unquote bullshit and the 30% that drive us crazy? And so I have a process called if this then what, okay? I'm not a science person. I went to college for public history, okay? But I'm very proud of the scientific formula in front of you. It is a two-step process. It's very simple. So we have what I call if this then what, and it literally allows you to look at every single one of your processes to say, if this happens, then what happens, right? So a great example, and I'm going to show you guys a crazy chart. This is actually a client project I worked on. But on the left-hand side, this is our starting process, right? So the blue is going to be all manual things, so just keep that in mind as like a color key. Blue is all manual. Green is going to be anything that we automated. And so this client was a photographer out of Detroit. She does weddings, senior portraits, a lot of like headshot kind of stuff. And the first question I ask every single person, when somebody visits your website, what happens? Do they fill out your contact form? Do they download a lead magnet? Like what is the purpose, right? So when you're asking yourself if this, then what, you have to have purpose and a reason, okay? So for this client, when somebody visited her website, she was like, well, I guess they fill out this honeybook form. Okay, well, you're asking about budget. What happens if they don't have budget? If they fill out this form, then what happens? If they don't qualify to work with you, what do you do with them? I don't know. Literally, her answer was, I guess I just ignore the lead. If somebody is not qualified to work with you, do you just ignore them? Do you leave them high and dry? You shouldn't. You should not do that. I love that you're shaking your head. You're like, no, I want that money. But so we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, if they are not qualified, then what happens? Do we create a lead magnet to help qualify them? Do we put them on an email list until we have an offer that they can work on and they can afford, right? Do we have a downsell offer that maybe we've been kind of playing around with? For instance, like Audrey and I earlier, we were talking, well, if somebody doesn't have the budget, maybe I can just whip out a 3-page website instead of an 8-page website, right? And kind of meet them in the middle. So how do you handle those things, right? And then you move through the process. So every project you work on, every client journey, every client phase, you have 3 distinct phases within that. So contact, sales, right? Lead gen, that's your first. Okay, well, when they do a sales call with you, then what happens? Are you sending a proposal? Are you sending a pitch deck? Are you sending them a contract? Like, what happens, right? Okay, well, what if they don't respond? How long do you wait to follow up? Do you give them 72 hours? That's what I do. I cut that cord real quick. Like, if you're getting a sales call with me, you should be signing on with me. Like, I don't have time to wait for you because my pricing is public, right? Like, if you're getting on a call with me, it's literally you're checking a box and signing a page. But if that is not you in your business, you need to make sure that you are closing the gaps at all times so you are not leaving people out of your ecosystem, okay? But all of that sounds so overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, Sarah's giving me 40 more fucking things to do in my business. I don't have time for that, right? That is where automation comes in, okay? So for Shannon, her entire business is based off of SMS texting. That is how she does her lead gen. She texts everybody because she runs Facebook ads for her photography business. She literally just sends a text. But she was doing all of that manually and averages over 90 leads a month for her business that she was manually texting every single one on average 7 times before they replied. Those are cold leads. Why are we doing manual work on cold leads? I digress. Thank you. So how do we automate that, right? Again, if this, then what? If someone fills out the Facebook form, why are you manually putting it into Honeybook? No, let's build an automation, right? If they fill out this form, let's automatically dump it in and then trigger to automatically text them for you, right? And so the process of if this then what allows you to really look at your processes, one, and say, is this necessary for my business? And two, how can I automate it? I will stand on my grave and say so loudly with my chest, I do not believe in offshore hiring. That is something that I firmly believe in for the sake of saving money, okay? So being in Austin and the Austin scene, everybody is very adamant, like, oh, I can hire somebody for $4 an hour. It's like, well, you could, but also if you can get an automation to do it, why not save that $4, right? And so I very much come from the stance, and everything we'll continue to talk about tonight, that I would rather pay a single mom in my neighborhood to help me for a couple hours a week than pay somebody around the world that we have time zone issues, and you got to make sure you pay them on time, and then there's like the guilt if you're not making money. Do you keep paying them? Do you let them go, right? We all know those ups and downs of freelancing. And so I really want you to think about, how can I automate my business enough as a solopreneur, or even if you have a couple contractors, this totally applies to you too, but what can I do where my bottom line is that I provide the best high quality experience no matter what for my clients, right? So I've told you everything, but what I haven't told you is I'm a solopreneur, and on average I have 13 to 15 clients at any given time, and no one knows. And I'm gonna tell you why. You're gonna meet her, I believe, on the next slide. Oh, sorry, let's go through my tech stack really fast, and then I'll let you in on my little secret. So this is my tech stack as a solopreneur. So once you do the if this then what process, it is then going to open up the conversation of, well, what tool do I use? How do I automate it, right? I'm a Zapier expert, and so I use Zapier. You don't have to use Zapier. You could use Make, you could use Relay, you could use basic Notion automations, depending on what it is. So my tech stack is fairly lean, and I keep it that way. I am a shiny object SaaS girl in the sense that I am always on Product Hunt, I am always testing things, but I do not let it influence my core, okay? So I use Notion. I think maybe people think I use it more than I do because I am a certified consultant. I'm one of 50 in the world with them, but I use it for finances, to track my invoices, my expenses. I use it for content management, and I use it for my sales pipeline, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I take some notes in there, like books I read, but I'm not a second brainer. Like, that stresses me out. I don't need to document every breath I take. Slack, I use Slack with every client. We have Slack Connect channels, and then you'll meet Lizzie in a second. I run everything else in my business using emojis in Slack, and it's pretty fun. So I'll show you that a bit. Paperform, I'm their first global expert, so I use Paperform. They're a little more extensive than like Tally or Notion forms. You can do signature fields. You can do, like, I have this pretty cool quiz on my website, and it's all like scored and routed and everything, and you can do that in there compared to other tools. Cal.com, you could not pay me $1 million to ever be on Calendly ever again. Cal.com is free, it's incredible. And what I love about Cal is it allows you to have a barrier in your sales process. And so, like I mentioned before, if you're getting on a call with me, it's because you know you want to work with me. It's not this like playing the game of, do I want to do this? And so Cal is really cool because you can turn on a toggle where anybody who books a call, you have to approve or reject it. And so I have all of my qualifier questions, like budget, is Notion the right tool for you? Is like, who on your team's making the decision to hire me, right? Like, do I have to jump through hoops to get that invoice paid? And so if they answer certain ways, I just decline the sales call. And I say, this just isn't for me. And I put them through my funnel for my DIY bundle that I sell. And then, of course, they can come back after that. Zapier, every automation that I have is through Zapier. Miro is what you guys just saw with the map, with the customer journey map. That's for mapping, it's whiteboarding. Circleback is the C, that's my AI note taker. I live and breathe Circleback. I'm obsessed with what their team has built. It's incredible, it's so good. It's so good, y'all, it's so good. Tella is the last logo. They are a Loom competitor. I love what Grant's building. It's way better quality than Loom. It's just an overall better experience. It's also cheaper. Stripe, I do all my invoicing, payments, everything through Stripe. I don't have an accounting software. I know that might shock a lot of people, but I literally have no overhead, so I just do everything in Stripe. Obviously Google Workspace, and then the R is Restream. So if y'all have not met me, or come across my YouTube channel, I live stream 3 days a week. And so I use Restream to live stream to LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube simultaneously. It's a great platform. And then I use Flowdesk for my email marketing. I was one of their first 100 customers, and I'll never leave. So, and their affiliate's really good as well. So when we think about all of those tools, right? You've done your work, you've done the if this, then what? You've looked at your customer journey. It's good, you have clients, but now what happens? You will never catch me creating content because it's viral or because it's just something that somebody in my space does. So again, not a knock to design, because I did design for a while, I'm allowed to make fun of myself. But there was a huge trend in 2019, 2020, where people would be like, these are my favorite fonts of the month. What does that do for your client base? How does that get you a client? I don't care what your favorite colors of the month are. Those are fun posts, but they don't drive clients, okay? And so this is the next piece of the if this, then what. Once you create your processes, it's not done. You always need to be tweaking and refining and making them better. And this is why we then, at the end of this, we are cycling back and we are doing what I call a post-project review. And so what you are doing is that you are going to review every single project to not only say, was this an ideal client? Did I get paid what I want? What did I learn from this project? Is it a project I would do again, right? Because sometimes we take projects because we need to pay rent, and other times we take projects because we want to learn something, and then we're like, I never wanted to, a ClickUp build. I did a ClickUp build last year and almost tore every single strand of my hair out. I will never touch ClickUp again. But I had to do the review to understand why, right? And what it came down to was migrations. I hate doing migration projects because they're just they're too overcomplicated for no reason. So when you do this review, and you get that client feedback, and you are asking for testimonials, guys. We are asking our clients for feedback too, because I know none of you in here do that. We all are guilty of making sure that we are asking for feedback. We then use that to create content to further drive clients in the future. And I'm not just saying share a testimonial, but here's a great example. You could share the testimonial, but you need to share the solution and the problem. So I'll read it because it's kind of small. So I had to just sum it up. I had a PhD student reach out that needed a basic Notion dashboard to track his classes, his lectures, his notes, and his assignments. And we sat, he paid me for 2 hours of my time, sat and said, this is so great, I can actually use Notion now. And he was like, I spent hours and hours and hours on YouTube, and everything was so complicated because as creators, we're always trying to updo each other, right? And we're like, sometimes you just need the basics. And so I talked about that in my LinkedIn post. I said, I hear this so often. I spent hours on YouTube. Everyone is showing complex workspaces, and it makes it hard to understand. The main reason why is when I build out an account or train others, I lean in heavily to the power of simplicity. You will never catch me putting emojis in a Notion account, and I will stand on that till the day I die. I don't do dashboards. I don't do any of that. If you can't understand the basics, design is not going to make it better, okay? So I then said, adding a ton of emojis or over-designing aren't going to make you a power user. Understanding how to find, maintain, and use the information does. I said for Way's project, he booked a 2-hour consulting call where together we built a basic 3-database workspace. Got a small project like this, book it here. Then I shared his testimonial, which is beautiful. You can read it later. Landed me 4 consulting clients from this tiny little 5-minute LinkedIn post because I'm simply showing here was the problem, here was the solution. But if you're not taking the time after a project to reflect on it, get the feedback and share it, you're always going to be like, where are all the clients at? I'm not getting clients. Because you're posting posts about your favorite fonts instead of the project at hand, right? And a lot of times product photography, I'm calling you out, I'm so sorry. But product photography, you have to lean into just imagery, right? And showing that. But when you are working in more of a strategy capacity, you have to spell things out, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah, this is the first template for you guys. So this is the project review guide. There's about 20 questions on there that basically go through, what did you love about the project? Did it take you the time that you said it was going to take you, right? Did the client drag their feet and now you have to figure out how to get feedback better? So that's a Notion template. If you just scan the QR code, it'll be at the end too. So how do I do all of this? You're asking. Sara, you are a crazy person. Yes, I know, and code is not legal yet. So instead, I have built a fake assistant. And her name is Lizzie Benson. And she is the best invention that I have ever had ChatGPT help me create. So Lizzie is not real. This is a ChatGPT photo. I don't know where it came from, but that's what I got. And I'm running with it. I'm like, she looks cute, she looks fun, she looks approachable. Girl-based business. So how Lizzie came about, again, reviewing your processes, guys. Everything happens for a reason, and if you are open to receiving those reasons, your business is going to be 20 times better. So I'm going to tell you another story. I mainly work with a male client base, and I've never had any issues. For the girls in here, if you have them, I'm very sorry. I guess I've just been fortunate. I don't know. But this client ran me ragged, okay? So I worked with this guy who does like a crypto podcast, which should have told you all I needed to tell you. It was great. The project was great, right? We did this production tracker in Notion and helped him like track all of his episodes and thumbnails and whatever. And I spent 5 months chasing a $400 invoice from this man. And it was like, I don't even need the money. The money's spent at this point. It's the respect, right? It is the pure respect that I did the work for you and you owe me money, right? So I happened to be at, I think it was a freelancing females event actually. And I was just like, I was complaining about it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I am chasing this guy. I don't even want the money anymore. I just want to know why you're not replying to me. And a friend of mine said, well, you know, I have a fake accountant. And I'm like, what? What? And she goes, yeah, I have a fake name, an accounting alias email that I just use on my email account, and it makes it sound like it's coming from my accountant sending invoices. And I'm like, there's no way that works, right? There's no way. Y'all are shaking your head, you're laughing. Yeah, I went into ChatGPT and I said, I need a fake name for an accountant. I want them to be stern but approachable, make it a woman, and spit out Lizzie, sent the email, not even 20 minutes later it was paid. And I'm like, you've gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me. There's no reason that as a freelancer, I need to have fake people supporting my business, right? Y'all are so, I was so angry. I was so angry that day. But it triggered this idea in my head, well, if I need that level of respect to be taken seriously, what else could Lizzie do for my business, right? And so I sat again with the if this then what and my customer journey, and I said, what could she do to take time off of my plate? And this is now everything that she does in my business. Lizzie literally is my second-hand wing woman for my business. So she's mainly custom built in Zapier. So just know that. She works in Zapier, Slack, and through Notion. So like I said, my sales pipeline is in Notion. And so after a sales call, her first thing is she takes all of the AI notes. I have a ChatGPT prompt that it goes through to review the client, review the notes, and say, hey, you should work with them or not. So like I'm not even making that kind of decision anymore because I'm like, I don't have the energy to like read through the lines. Then if I decide I want to work with them, I basically just change the status in Notion, which triggers every piece of onboarding that you could ask for. So she drafts our onboarding, our contract, she sets the email or the invoices. If they don't respond in 72 hours, she follows up. And then when the client signs on, she then creates the Slack Connect channel for us with all the automated messages. She blocks out my entire calendar, y'all. So I have full universalized processes. So if you do custom work, this isn't gonna work for you, kinda, maybe a little bit, but not as well as it works for me. I don't change my pricing for anybody unless you want exclusivity with me, and that's like just an upcharge. So everything is the exact same. Every client gets a 4-hour offsite with me. Every client is about 90 days to 120 days with me, depending on which offer they sign on to. And so she literally blocks the whole day for my offsite the day before, the day of. She then puts on my to-do if I need to book tickets to go to the client or if I need to schedule local, like I rent office space for us when we're local. She then blocks every milestone in my calendar, so I immediately know what's due and when for every phase. All my clients go through like a curriculum that I've trademarked, and so she plugs all of that into my calendar. She then puts them through a funnel with reminders. She sends automatic calendar reminders for them for follow-up. I do like a 90-day post call with every client, just like see how things are going. That's where I get that feedback that then goes into fixing my processes. I do a live call with everybody. And then during the project, she also sends every invoice. She follows up on the invoices. She sends all the offboarding. But the new thing is that Lizzie manages my entire Gmail account. I don't check my email really anymore. So certain clients and emails go through a specific label in Gmail. That's how I have this set up. And so if they get triggered, it then goes through ChatGPT, a custom prompt that I wrote. She drafts a response, ships it to me in Slack. I basically just click an emoji to approve it, and then she replies in Gmail and sends it to me. So that was my biggest bottleneck with my business, is I would see emails and be like, okay, cool. Like in my mind, I replied to it, and then like 4 days would go by, and I'm like, fuck, I never replied to that client, but I did the work, right? But they didn't know that I was doing the work the whole time. And so this allows me to just keep my workflows going, stay in deep focus work, and some startups call it like monk mode. Like I just stay in that state of mind 3 days a week. I don't do admin for my business. So this is my emoji system. It's very professional in my business, but I have a couple emojis that I require clients to abide by. So if I send you a message, you need to use the eyes emoji to say that you've read it, that you have taken in whatever I've said. And if I'm requesting anything like homework or whatever, use the green check box to say that it's done, right? Disco balls delete items out of Slack for me. It's nice to just click one emoji, and because you can, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can actually save emojis to like your most favorite use. You can also upload custom emojis, and so it's easier to just click that instead of clicking the settings, clicking delete, like clicking the accept, like all of that. So that's why I have that. I also have like the crayon. I have one channel in Slack where I just literally dump every thought into. I call it my dump truck. So like if I find a video on YouTube that I want to replicate or I want to watch later, or I have a thought for a video that I want to do, I'll just dump it in there, and if I click the crayon emoji, it adds it to my content calendar and pushes me to start scripting and publish it, because I'm an ideator. Like if I don't take action, I'll never do it. And then I have different things like marking things as important and priority. If I do that, it then adds it to my priority calendar on Google, because I use my Google. If it is on my calendar, it doesn't exist. I post every breath I take on my calendar. And this is so fun. It's so fun to talk about running my entire business with emojis. I'm like, I swear I'm a professional. So all that to say, since I've automated everything, I have brought back 10 plus hours on my calendar as a solopreneur. Again, always managing between 10 and 15 clients at any given time. I still have capacity. I've increased my capacity by 30%, which is why I have a lot of clients. Also, I have 4x'd my deliverability. So you guys are hearing, 12 to 13 clients, how do you manage that? My clients never know when I am busy, because I have been able to automate and streamline everything. So when a client wants to sign on, if I have 12 different things to do, they're not waiting for me to be available at midnight to hopefully remember to have sent them onboarding, right? To remember to do things, to remember to ship them a file or whatever. I also was able to launch a second business. So I have been working on an AI-powered hiring directory for people who basically do what I do. It's called Ops Department. .io, and my friend Nick James, who's also a nursing consultant, him and I are building it together, and our whole goal is, one, to compete directly with Contra, because they didn't want me on their platform, which is fine. It's another conversation for another day. But we are building it to also help people refine and define what it means to work with people who do low code. But yeah, it's really fun. And I also brought back another job. I've been in events for about 10, 15 years, and I'm back to doing conferences and summits full time. So all of that, systems is just my day job, guys. Like, I'm here because of what I've been able to do, but I look at it as it just pays my rent, so I can go do the things that I really love to do, which is micro SaaS and doing events. And so I want you guys to also enter that space. You don't have to do events, I'm not saying that. But like if you're like, oh, I want to start doing more art, I want to paint more, I want to learn how to cook, right? Or whatever your goals are. Start with literally these 3 resources. So the first one is going to be my business ecosystem workbook. That is literally what my 20, 50,000 plus clients literally do as their onboarding homework. And when you download it, there's two versions. There's a teams version and a solos version. So if you have like one-ish contractor, I would still say with the solo. But if you're a team, even like if you guys have not gone full time and you still have a day job, which I know a couple of you do, like, and your processes in your day job are a nightmare, take this to them. Be a leader, do a lunch and learn, and take all the credit. Take all the credit, okay, for processing your rollout. And what I tell everybody, right, not to be pessimistic, but like, everyone is replaceable, okay? We all like to think that we're not, that, oh, I run my business, it is me, until you wanna go take a sabbatical, until you wanna go on paternity leave, right? Who is going to take over for you? I know a lot of people that I've had conversations with recently are like, well, I'll just go hire a VA. Okay, that's great, but if you've never processed your work out, how are you going to tell a VA how to do the job, right? How are you going to hire someone if you don't actually know what you do every day? And so the workbook is literally going to, one, make you very uncomfortable because it's going to remind you about things that like you didn't think you needed to know, or like, be like, oh, I should have thought about that, but it will help guide you through that. The second thing is that post-project review that I shared with you guys earlier. That's a really, seriously, like a really great resource. And then the last one is just a Miro template for the customer journey mapping. So if this, then what? So if you want to start mapping it out and kind of follow my color system, that's a really great, just free tool. But if you whiteboard in Canva or whatever, like I know a lot of people are whiteboarding in Canva these days, you can definitely just take it and throw it in Canva. That is all I've got. Hopefully I was on time. Who has questions? Yeah.
Quick question. So, like most of the ChatGPT, as you mentioned, lives in Zapier. So
yeah.
It's like basically like Liz, the virtual person, she's in Zapier more or less.
Yes.
Like, what's like the point of like Notion? Like, what does Notion do then? If everything's happening in Zapier, what does Notion do?
Well, now Notion is my database, and right, it like houses all of my data. And so Lizzie is built as a bot.
Zapier is in Notion.
It works alongside. It's a companion tool, right? Okay. So Notion is kind of the starting point. So when people reach out, their data gets dumped into Notion from cal.com. And then if I want to keep working with them, Notion's the trigger for it. You're welcome. What other questions do you guys have? Yeah.
How does it take you to set up? Like just make sure the prompts are correct, the flow chart of your algorithm goes to the correct spots.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you prompt it correctly, there could be a lot of trial and error. Just make sure.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you were paying attention because I did not specifically share that. So first of all, you need to have dummy data for your business. For anything that you do, have a fake email account. Like I'm not talking like hello@systems.club versus like Sara@systems. Like have like a dummy like Sara Loretta @gmail, right? That you pretend you are your own client, and when you build something, you take that and go through it. So that's the first thing, right? What's breaking, what's working, what's like overkill, right? But then the second thing with that is that I did not build this all in one go, okay? Like I mentioned, I started Lizzie because I had an issue with invoicing. So that was the first thing. Then I added on, what did I add on next? It literally, the last thing I did was onboarding. So I think like I tiptoed in Slack with her for a little bit, and then I started casually adding on the calendar. That's what it was, because I had something big going on, and I was just like missing like large phases, and I was like, why am I manually inputting all this into my calendar? Oh yeah, and I was going through a time where I was like, I'm gonna track my time and see where I can be more efficient. Blah, blah, blah. And so I put in Lizzie for that, and then I started going through onboarding. So I think overall where Lizzie is at today, I think it's been about a 10-month process. With like, a couple weeks here or there, like in between. But yeah, it is not a one and done, like don't take an edible and like do it on a weekend. You know what I mean? Like you gotta like, ease into it. And I think too, like every client, right? Like if you guys are in a position where like you're kind of okay with your clients now, but you know that maybe you want to change something, whether it's pricing or your niche, whatever, I think that that's crap anyway. But like, you want to like up your client base. I would not automate things for things that don't exist yet. Do it manually once with the client that you do want to be working with, get that feedback and say, okay, here's where I want to fix things and make it even better for the next client that comes in. So that's what I would recommend doing. Yeah.
they want to add something or something broke in the process. Does that happen often?
Do you mean like a client wants to add things to your project? Yeah, so I don't do any of that. What I sell is what I sell. I don't do add-ons. I would rather chew glass than customize a proposal. Like, that's not my job. That's not how I run my business. And so and it's funny because we were talking about earlier, when I sign on a client, they get an initial email from me that's like, hey, this is what we talked about. Just as a reminder, this is what we do. But I actually filmed that as a video. It's a private video that I have because a lot of my clients, they get on a sales call, but they're not the ones making the decision to hire me. So I have a fully recorded sales video that I send to everyone that recaps. It's a 90-day process. Every 30 days, we go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I don't really care what deliverables you get out of that because you don't even know what deliverables you need. And that's a benefit to the work that I do, is people will be like, I want Notion. And it's like, for what? Like, what do you just want to leave ClickUp? Okay, but like they can't tell me how they work in order to tell me how to build Notion, right? So I have aligned all of my processes, my SOPs, my scope, my agreements, all of that to be very open and broad to say you are getting the strategy, you're getting the framework, and then I will build whatever comes out of that. And through that, after phase 1, they do sign off on my implementation plan, but it's not custom written into anything. So it is very rare that I have to go back and fix things. Most of the time now, I'm fixing and tweaking because I'm just improving my business over time. And it's like, oh, I want to make this email better. I want to make this page stand out a little bit better. So what other questions you guys have? Yeah.
It's kind of related to that, but like, how do you know your time allocation in terms of like human to human? Because is there any part of your business where you're actually getting on calls and talking to somebody and you have an hour, 2-hour call?
Yeah.
Track all of that.
I went viral for that actually because I said that I'm happy to get on calls and people lost their mind. And I was like, you got to just have boundaries, man. If someone's asking you for 15 minutes, then you need to take 15 minutes for yourself too. It's not just take, like, or give. You need to let it be taken. So I thrive on collaboration with my clients. I know I'm kind of an asshole. I'm known for that. But once we get into it, I'm your best friend. So I do 4 hours of offsite to kick off every single project. We do 4 hours with an hour break. Usually it's at an office space in Austin, or I fly to the client and do it at their office. I was literally in Dallas last week doing this. So that's the first thing. Then we do async for initial strategy or auditing. I give like a 30-minute video recording. I then do 3 key partner calls for every single client. So that is a current client, past client, board members, whoever is in your ecosystem. I have unbiased calls with them because you are probably too close to your processes, and somebody who experienced them, I want their opinion on it too. So that's another 3 hours there, so that's 7. And then you have a private calendar with me that you can book at any time. And most clients don't. Some will because they're like, oh my God, based on our call, we marinated and realized, and I'm like, yep, I was waiting for it. So normally each client gets about 20 hours. Yeah.
What's your average expense, like monthly expense for Lizzie?
That's hard to say.
Because it varies, right?
Well, no, kind of, but not really. So I am on the highest plan of Zapier. It's like the highest enterprise plan. But I have clients that I've licensed out my account to that pay me monthly for me to host their Zaps for their business. Like a couple smaller teams that just like needed one paid Zap. Like it doesn't make sense for them to completely pay for Zapier. So I just offset the costs and they pay me. So normally I think I pay like $200 a month on the highest plan, and it's like everything unlimited, everything you could want. So anything else? Yeah, last question.
Okay, last one, thanks. Like with ChatGPT, you never really give Lizzie reins to like make this.
No.
She's always asking you
Yes.
first, and then you go okay with it.
Yeah, I buffer everything. So even like when she sends an invoice, I get a notification in Slack, hey, I've prepped this invoice. Do you want me to send it? I click an emoji and then it sends. So just because, so I know it's actually happening, because actually that was one of the questions I think is like when things go wrong. So I had an instance where Stripe was not sending the invoice even though it said it was, like clients weren't receiving it. And in the automation, you can't CC yourself in that invoice for some reason, like in Zapier itself. And so that's when I put in the buffer where I just approve everything. But it's easier for me to click an emoji than have to think to do do something. So, but it's fixed now. I'm good. I like knowing, like, when stuff happens. I'd rather be able to check it off and, like, know, okay, it's good, than, like, wonder, you know? So, because that's the issue with Notion automations, is that there's currently no way to track if a database automation fails. There's also no run sheet. So you don't even know when it's running and how, which hopefully is coming very soon. You know, so I just like to have my toes in things. So, well, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate it. This was fantastic. I will be here, so any questions, if you didn't want to ask in front of the group, please come and chat with me.